Now, here's the X-ray information. Dr. Alan Adler did a three-dimensional photograph of the Shroud of Turin and compared it to a human X-ray. And we discovered that the first image on this cloth is not just flesh and blood and hair, it's skeletal. And here we're comparing it to a skeleton. Eye socket, eye socket. Nasal cavity, nasal cavity. What's in the mouth of the human X-ray? What's in the mouth of the Shroud? Is his mouth opened or closed? Closed. If I want to take a picture of your teeth and your mouth is closed, what instrument must I use? An X-ray. And so there, basically, this proves X-rays have gone through this cloth, lighting up the internal skeletal structure. Nancy and I work with Dr. Gus Asseter at the Shroud Center, and he's been doing nuclear imaging research, and he's been able to prove this by injecting radioisotopes into his body as a doctor. You know, when doctors want to see if you have cancer, they light up the internal organs of your body and take pictures. We had that done to himself, put in a dark room with 100% linen cloth, and then photographed. And guess what? He was able to mimic one of the four aspects of the shroud, the X-ray information. And so here we can see that. Now, that's okay. Don't worry about that, because that guy again, whose name we don't know in 1355, he was, it's just all anticipatory as to what we'll know in the 20th century. You know, the shroud is always ahead of science, always. Now, he's been scourged all over his feet. You can see the blood coming out of his feet here. These are fingerprints marks. Somebody has left their fingerprints in the blood of our Lord as they've taken his body and put it into the shroud. This is the back area right here. And this is where the crossbeam crossed his back. I find this very interesting. I'm going to explain to you in a little bit. Jesus did not carry a T-bar. When you see the Stations of the Cross, love them, honor them, and venerate them. But just like the medallion with St. Jude, when he's carrying the T-bar, it's a mistake in sacred art. It's no big deal. It's okay. They carried a crossbeam. The stipe was always in the ground waiting for the next victim. And here Monsignor Ritchie is showing you the crossbeam. Here's the stipes waiting for the victims on Golgotha. And here they were forced to carry their crossbeams in a chain gang, just like we put our prisoners. That's why they're whipping him when he falls. He's holding up the chain gang. Here you can see them nailing him to the crossbeam. And of course we know that the nail went through the wrist, or even perhaps the bottom of the palm of the hand. But what most people don't know is that when you're crucified through that area, the thumb has no choice but to flex in, even on a dead body. And when we look at the Shroud of Turin, we didn't know this until the 20th century, you can see there's no visible thumb. But this is the wrist wound right here. These are not long fingers, my friends. Those are the metacarpal bones in the hand being lit up. That's that X-ray information I explained to you a little bit ago. So there's the X-ray information right before your eyes. Not long fingers, metacarpal bones being illustrated, being lit up in the Shroud of Turin. And here we're showing it through the human model, and here's the X-ray of the human being, and here's the shroud. And you can see for your own eyes. Here's the wrist, here's the wrist, here's the wrist, and you can see the metacarpal bones. I'm not going to get too much into this, but there's all sorts of other images on the shroud. Everybody makes fun of the Catholic tradition of the passion objects. Well, guess what? Guess what? They're actually all there. We find them on the shroud. Here is one of the nails. Here's the drawing showing you what the nail looks like. And here's the coronal discharge information of the nail in the cloth. Why would Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus put a nail in the cloth with Jesus? What does it have on it? Blood. Excellent, my friends. Excellent. It contains Jesus' blood. They have to go into the tomb with him. It's part of the Jewish custom of burial. Here you can see his feet. This is, of course, proving again no bones are broken. That's where the nail went through. And this is the post-mortem heart wound. Very, very important. Look at his face there, my friends. Look, he's coming out of this cloth, I'm telling you. You know, people look at the shroud and they think it's a still photograph. I even talk to scientists. It's not a still photograph. It's a moment of motion. Jesus is coming through the cloth. Look at him there. He's coming through alive. Do you see that, my friends? So, here is his heart wound right here, and we're going to prove that it's post-mortem 3 ways, very quickly. Remember, John makes a big deal about this in his gospel. He says, I'm at the foot of the cross, and I tell you the truth. Jesus is dead on the cross when the centurion pierced his heart. And the Shroud of Turin proves it. And so here you can see it. Here's the post-mortem heart wound in our normal color as we see it. And here you can see there's 3 ways we can prove it. The first way is this. When you're alive, your blood serum levels are different than when you're dead. When you're alive, your serum levels, which is water in your blood, is minimal. When you die, your serum levels increase. The serum level in this blood has increased dramatically. And if you had ultraviolet light like the scientists did, you would see 10 times the amount of serum levels that the eye cannot detect, proving again no forgery and post-mortem blood flow. The second way we can prove it's post-mortem. If you look at Jesus' cheek in this photograph, notice he was struck in the face when he was alive, his cheek swelled up, blood started to flow. Yet look at this puncture wound. There isn't one iota of swelling to it. Why not? He's dead. You can puncture dead tissue all you want. It won't swell up. That puncture occurred when the body was dead. Finally, the third way we can prove this, if I were to take somebody here in the audience and pierce their beating heart with a Roman lance and facing the crowd, what would happen to the blood as I pierced their heart? It would squirt all over the place. You guys would get soaking wet. You can see this blood is not squirting all over the place. It's just trickling and oozing out of the wound, consistent with the force of gravity, with a body in crucifixion position. This heart had stopped beating when it was pierced. And here you can see the side wound itself and the actual blood and water that St. Faustina saw in her vision. The blood and water that gushed forth as a fountain of mercy for us. Also, let me ask you guys this question. Do you find DNA in paint? No. How interesting. Then why is this book titled DNA of God ? Well, the question mark is not to question whether or not there's blood on the shroud. We know scientifically it's blood. There's 11 different tests that have been done on it to prove that it's human blood, not primate blood or any other type of blood. Human blood of that rare blood group. So the question mark is this, DNA of God. Well, we've got this blood, we've got its DNA, and if this blood is from Jesus and Jesus is God, do we then have the DNA of God? That's what the question mark is. By the way, the person who holds the DNA is right here in Texas. His name is Dr. Stephen Mattingly. He has it on file. Here you can see the blood attaching to the cloth itself, right here. But most people want you to believe that the Shroud of Turin mystery has been solved. I love that one. Here's my other favorite headline right down here. Church says Turin Shroud, not burial cloth of Christ. That's my favorite one. Church never said that. Based on this carbon-14 dating test. It's based on this carbon-14 dating test. Let me show you one way to quickly just put the carbon-14 dating test to the ground. When you burn your sample, you must burn your sample to do carbon dating. And when you burn your sample, you release carbon-12 and carbon-14 molecules. You actually get a carbon-13 molecule. And based on that carbon-13 molecule, you then guesstimate the age of an object. And that's all it is. It's a guess. Carbon-14 is the most inexact science known to man. Well, now let me ask you a question. I showed you already the shroud was in its casket on fire in 1532. If it's on fire, what do you get from the flames? Carbon, smoke and carbon. If the casket is closed, yeah, sure, some of the smoke is releasing from the casket, but where's the majority of the smoke going? Into the cloth. So if those yokels in 1988 measured anything at all, they measured the smoke of the 1532 fire. Now, how can we actually tell you what year the shroud's from? Yeah, we can tell you from the coins on the eye. We've discovered that there are coins on the eye. These coins just happen to be minted in about the year 29 AD under the patronage of a man called Pontius Pilate. But don't let that bother you. It's this guy in 1355 again, running around, getting all this stuff ready. Here is the sudario overmatching the shroud. And you can see the blood stains match up, especially around the nose area, as I told you earlier. And here we can see also these incredible other photographs of the sudario overlaying with the shroud here.